Hi, I'm Rishi Divte, Principal Product Manager at Sumo Logic, responsible for apps and integrations. Today I'm going to talk about how to confidently migrate to running MongoDB Atlas in the cloud with Sumo Logic. Now, Atlas is the cloud database for MongoDB, and the Atlas Live Migration Service can help migrate your data from your managed MongoDB server, whether it's in a data center or running in a cloud provider, to MongoDB Atlas. This happens in 3 steps, where you first deploy your Atlas cluster, run live migration to migrate your data, and finally change your application to use the new cluster. However, before starting and while migrating any workload, and especially a workload as critical as a database, from a managed or an on-premises environment to the cloud, the following questions come up. The first being reliability. Is your Atlas database running reliably so your customers get uninterrupted service? Secondly, performance. Are your databases in the cloud performing as well or better than what you had on-premise so your customers continue to get the best possible experience? And finally, security. Are your organization's security policies being adhered to in the cloud? So at the end of the day, when you migrate to the cloud, you don't want fear and apprehension to prevent you from getting all the benefits of running MongoDB in the cloud. So to address these concerns and help you make sure your databases in the cloud are running reliably and in a performant and secure manner, we at Sumo Logic have partnered with MongoDB to deliver real-time monitoring solutions for both Atlas and server. So as part of the agenda today, I'm first going to give you an introduction to Sumo Logic and then dive into what streams of data we can tap into across both server and Atlas. I'm going to follow this up with a demo of how the Sumo Logic dashboards can be used and then show examples of how Sumo Logic can help with monitoring the health, performance, and security of your server and Atlas clusters. So let's begin with an introduction to Sumo Logic. Sumo Logic is a machine data analytics service. And when we say machine data, we mean logs, metrics, and events that are put out by your application stacks and infrastructure. We analyze this data to manage the operations and security of production applications. Now, Sumo Logic is multi-tenant, so you don't need to deploy or maintain the service. You send us the data and you can instantly start to analyze it. Furthermore, we've built a massively scalable solution that serves over 2,000 customers, analyzes hundreds of petabytes of data, runs over 30 million searches, and scans over hundreds of trillions of records daily. So we share these numbers so our customers know that our service is extensively used and is reliable. So we share these numbers so our customers know our service is extensively used and is reliable. Also, no other service in this space provides this level of proven scalability and elasticity. Sumo Logic can ingest logs, metrics, and events from the full application stack, IT infrastructure, and security devices. What this means is you can then centralize this data, monitor it, alert on it, as well as use it to troubleshoot issues. Sumo Logic targets 3 major use cases: operational analytics, security analytics, and business analytics. In the operational analytics space, we help our customers monitor and troubleshoot their apps and infrastructure. We are also known to reduce mean time to investigation and mean time to recovery by over 90% for many of our customers. Now, in the security analytics space, we help monitor and detect threats and help our customers do deep threat level investigations. We also provide out-of-the-box compliance solutions such as PCI and enable our customers to create audit reports to simplify compliance. Now, in the business analytics space, many of our customers also use us to understand how their end users are accessing their apps. For example, which locations they're coming in from, the mobile devices they're using, as well as information around how their applications are being used so they can focus on developing the right capabilities. Finally, many leading edge customers use Sumo Logic for customer support. This is so they can quickly address customer issues with timely, relevant, and contextual data. So Sumo Logic provides all of these capabilities in one platform. What that means is you need to bring this data in once, and the solution can provide you operational security and business insights to serve all of your teams. Sumo Logic provides close to 200 out-of-the-box integrations to cloud and application stacks, DevOps tools, SaaS applications, and security products. Two examples of which I'm going to dive into today are, of course, MongoDB, Server, and Atlas. Now, these integrations are made available as apps in the Sumo Logic app catalog. These apps are collections of out-of-the-box dashboards and queries. And these apps enable you to send data from your product or tool to Sumo Logic and visualize and search this data to give you instant insight about what's going on with that product or tool. You can then correlate this data with other data streams. For example, correlate database logs with application stacks, web servers, and load balancers. It's also very easy to customize these apps to best suit your needs. We also have an active community of partners who build and contribute apps to this ecosystem. So let's dive deeper into how MongoDB Server and Atlas can be monitored. So with MongoDB Server, there are three key aspects of monitoring. The first being operational logs that tell you about server uptime, errors, and warnings. Server performance logs give you insight into slow queries, and on the security side, you have information about who's logging into the database and where they're coming in from. So on the Atlas side, we get much more information. The first being database audit logs that tell you what's happening in the database related to authentication, database commands, replication, indexing, and then you have audit log messages that tell you what actions are being taken. For example, database, index, user, or role creation or modified events. We also have Atlas alerts that tell you about critical conditions in your hosts, replica sets, sharded clusters, or critical events related to Atlas billing, users, organizations, and teams. Now, operational metrics give you important information about CPU, memory, network, database cursors, and various operational counters related to MongoDB processes. Finally, we have events that tell you what's happening at the project and organizational level. So this slide summarizes all the kinds of information that we're getting from both Atlas and Server and forms the basis for successfully monitoring the reliability, performance, and security of your migration from Server to Atlas. So now that we've talked about different kinds of information available to us, let's look into how Sumo Logic integrates with it. So as part of our app for MongoDB Server, we collect log files from MongoDB Server via a collector agent, and that collector agent sends data directly to Sumo Logic, and once that data starts flowing in, we have an app with out-of-the-box dashboards that give you instant insight. For Atlas, however, given that Atlas is fully managed and in the cloud, we have scripts that call the Atlas APIs to retrieve logs, metrics, and audit event data, and then send that over to Sumo Logic. Atlas also has alerts that can be configured to send to Sumo Logic directly via our webhook endpoints. Again, just like Server, you have out-of-the-box dashboards that bring all of this information in one place. Now that we've talked about how to integrate Atlas and Server data in Sumo Logic, let's talk about how to monitor the reliability and performance of these database clusters. So to start with, I'm going to move over to the Sumo Logic console to see how you can take advantage of its analytics capabilities. This shows the Sumo Logic console And here we see the Sumo Logic app catalog. You first want to identify the MongoDB Atlas app in the catalog, and you can then associate this app with the data source you've configured while setting up the integration. And after you've added this app to the library, you get a folder with a set of pre-configured dashboards. I already have the Atlas overview dashboard pulled up over here, and it shows an at-a-glance view of errors, alerts, slow queries, and audit events. You can then drill down into the details from any one of these top panels by simply clicking on them to get into another dashboard. So in this dashboard, you see errors and warnings captured from your logs in your Atlas environment, which makes it super convenient as opposed to digging through and analyzing log files manually. So in this panel, you can see trends of the number of errors seen this week and compare them to last week to monitor your database health. In this panel, I can see errors by component, which tells me which area to focus on more. This is important as you migrate to the cloud, so you can understand which aspects of your cluster are doing better or worse in the cloud. Now I can further drill down into the queries and subsequent logs that are driving this dashboard by simply clicking here. So this shows me the query and the raw log message that I've received from Atlas. Okay, now let's go back to the presentation to take a look at other dashboards available in both Atlas and Server. So just like we saw in Atlas, we have a similar dashboard in Server to monitor all errors and warnings. So going back to the Atlas dashboards again, from a migration standpoint, it's important to identify all new errors you see in Atlas compared with Server to make sure you didn't introduce any new problems when you did the cutover. As with health monitoring, it's critical to monitor the performance of your queries so your customers have a positive experience when interacting with your apps. Now this dashboard mines all your slow query logs and shows slow queries over time by type, database, collections, and connections. This enables you to get quick insight into where the hotspots are, again without having to spend a lot of time troubleshooting this manually. Another metric we're showing here is queries with the ratio of number of documents examined to actual number of documents returned. And this ratio should be as close to 1 as possible to identify performant queries. So what we can do here is we can correlate metrics that we're getting from Atlas with underlying logs. So here this log overlay feature in Sumo Logic shows all the logs associated with a particular metric for a given time range. And this can help explain the reason for a particular set of metric values. Now, similar to Atlas, we have a dashboard that monitors slow queries in Server as well. And you can use this to make sure you haven't introduced any new slow queries in Atlas as part of the migration. By default, each Atlas cluster is automatically deployed with 3 replicas across multiple availability zones. So the Atlas replication dashboard helps you quickly identify which nodes are primary and secondary and shows you the number and details around replication errors, events, and warnings. Atlas supports horizontal scaling via sharded clusters, and this dashboard shows you important information around errors, warnings, and failure events such as chunk split and balancer failures. You can also visualize chunk movement between shards and movements by collection. So similar to Atlas, we have equivalent replication and sharding dashboards for Server. So to summarize, when you move to Atlas, you can use both sets of dashboards to make sure both replication and sharding is configured correctly and is working as expected in Atlas. Now, security is paramount as you migrate to the cloud, and most cloud migration projects get stalled because of inadequate security controls and monitoring. So let's see how we can monitor server and Atlas clusters with Sumo Logic. So let's see how we can monitor the security of server and Atlas clusters with Sumo Logic. So to begin with, on the server side, we have a dashboard that shows all aggregated and detailed information around failed logins as well as login locations based on incoming IP addresses. Now, if your server is hosted on-premise, most of these will be internal IPs. Since Atlas is in the cloud, however, you could have folks logging in from multiple locations. Here, in addition to failed logins and login location panels like we showed in server, we're also matching external IP addresses with our internal threat intelligence database that has known malicious IP addresses in them. So if we find a match, we flag those locations in this dashboard. And then we call out the bad actors, their malicious confidence levels, and the malware families they belong to. We also have special dashboards in Atlas to monitor all database level audit information such as database read-write operations, index creation, shutdown events, and failed authentications and authorizations. Now this Atlas dashboards shows you how you can audit Atlas at the project and organizational level. This is so you can identify events such as users without multi-factor authentication, whitelisting, host restarts, as well as any billing related changes you might have made. And finally, we have a dashboard to monitor Atlas alerts. Atlas allows you to configure alerts based on various conditions, and the purpose of this dashboard is to capture and present that in a meaningful way. Now, two key pieces I want to highlight here. The first being the ability to automatically detect unusual activity in alerts via the Sumo Logic outlier capability. And secondly, the ability to drill down from this dashboard to the Atlas console to get more details about a specific alert. We've talked about dashboards, but what if you want to be proactively notified when something undesirable happens? So let's talk about automating your incident response workflows so you can take action before your customers notice or more harm is done. The Sumo Logic has outbound connections that help you automate the creation of incident response workflows by sending data when certain conditions are triggered directly to a number of ticketing, notification, and incident response systems. This can be done by using the searches from our dashboards to be run on a schedule and send alerts when certain conditions in Atlas are detected. Doing so also helps reduce time taken to investigate by ensuring the response teams get the context around an incident. Now, this is important because most teams don't just want to know if something bad happened, but they want to know what the context was around it. For example, in this case, what was the associated database cluster, collection, host, or user associated with an alert? We've also seen that automating workflows also helps prevent alert fatigue by sending critical data to teams that have specific areas of responsibility as opposed to sending alerts to the entire team. To summarize what we've learned so far, we've seen how MongoDB Atlas and Server make valuable operational and security information available via critical logs, metrics, security, and audit events. And more importantly, you don't want fear and apprehension to prevent you from getting the benefits of running MongoDB Atlas in the cloud. So we've shown how you can bring transparency and confidence to the process by comprehensively monitoring the reliability, performance, and security of both Atlas and Server with Sumo Logic. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you found this talk useful. Feel free to sign up for a free Sumo Logic account at sumologic.com and feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions.